Hello, and thank you for coming today. My name is Jeff Howes, and I'm one of the committee that worked on this sign project. We have two other members of the committee here, John Mack and John Stampin, and there are three more. We'll mention again later. Heather Salins, the planning director of the city. She was on the committee. Dick Martin, Rose Drain. You may know. We're really proud of this project. I say that. So I'm going to get going talking about it. And at any point, if you have questions, then please stop us and you can answer them. We have till 12:30 or something. Yeah, okay, good. And I are on the Historic Preservation Commission, and the other members are friends of the Historic Preservation Commission. If any of this interests you so much that you think, oh, I would like to be a friend of the Historic Preservation Commission, I would like to write articles for the historic building in Vermont. I would like to give the commission ideas of what buildings and neighborhoods they might consider for designation as historic. Please get in touch with us. So here we have some reviews of downtown Bowling Green. 1880 is the upper left side, and you can see that the buildings there are mostly wooden. There's one brick building that still exists on the left side. It's the Union Block. Then we moved to 1906, and there are lots of buggies there. And in this view, almost all of the buildings in downtown are brick. There were two big fires, 1887 and 1888. And a lot of the wooden buildings, but people of Bowling Green were enjoying the boom at the time, and they had the means to put up nice brick buildings which were more fire resistant. Not totally, as you can see. It says 1925, but I think it must be 1926 because this bank building, which you recognize, I still think it was the Huntington Bank building. Hasn't been that in a while. That was built in 1926. And here we have cars in the street. And you may be able to recognize some of the other buildings. This one isn't here anymore, but on this side of the street, almost all of the buildings are still there. Are still existing. These cars too, yeah. And then we have a very recent, because it has the sign in the picture, talking about historic Main Street. So that's just to kind of give you a quick glimpse into how we're looking at things historically. The architecture plays a big role, but we also try to talk about people and activities.
So that we're wondering banner.
Instant game.
Oh, okay.
I can't. It's not on my screen.
Link a lot.
A little bit about the process of this. It took us a bit over a year to do this project, which in retrospect is really quick, but we worked quite hard on it, if I do say so myself. Part of the strategic plan that's in the city what do we call the laws? We don't call them laws. Anyway, but one of the things that the historic ordinance, yes, thank you. If anyone wants to help me out at any time, and one of the things in the ordinance is that one of our jobs is not only to designate what buildings and neighborhoods in the city are historic and to maintain the historic substance of the city, but also to educate the public. That's a big part of that, right? So people know why the buildings are important, why the neighborhoods are important. We are a city that is a certified local government. in terms of historic preservation. The past, an application process. And in July 2023, we became one that can work with the state level and federal level preservation services. We applied for a grant. When I say we, other sailors did a lot of it, most of it, but not often. And we received a grant, which is I'll decide to do it. Which is a matching grant. That is, they gave us 60% of the cost in the United States, 40% for a total of about $42,000, which gave us enough for 16 signs. The committee, I've already mentioned the names, but here you see a picture of us with one of the early versions of one of the signs in the city building. Rose Rain, Jeff House, and Matt, Sampson, Sarah, Dick Martin, and Heather Saylor. We found a very good sign company in the Louisville area. We put out a and he's responded, and this one was really the one that we found. They came up a couple of times and worked very closely with us also remotely. And so we started to formulate the sign ideas, figure out general locations, which neighborhoods or which buildings we wanted to put into the signs. And you see the timetable on the right side, and we'll get out of this smaller print pretty soon. August or February, we did the research, designed the pictures. We had a designer at the sign company, but they wanted us to give them a basic idea of how we wanted them to look. And then in January to February of last year, we talked to various stakeholders, city council and civic organizations about what we were doing. February through May, we worked out the sign locations and started to produce the signs. And the signs were installed in July of last year. And we finally had the dedication in August.
You can see it.
This is just kind of getting right into the substance of what we were doing. A lot of the things that we wanted to talk about after we did our research is on that they don't exist anymore. Do you want to know where the Bowling Green YMCA was? That's a long time ago. And if you look at the next picture, you'll see where it was. Recognize that? That's the parking lot between Watertown Heroes and
All right.
And there was that large wooden house there that was the YMCA for a while.
And women were not allowed to enter the building.
And there are some more buildings. This is these homes. Can't be anyone here who has never said. It was a hotel, and it's at the site of a hotel that is still there but not functioning as a hotel. This is private. Yeah, that was named after someone, please. And that one is. No.
I'm about to lose it.
No. No.
Yeah. I'm trying to see if someone can bring these up. Sorry.
That's another California, that's kind of weird. But as far as we can tell that. It says here that we wanted to focus on signs that were up on focus on signs on National Register buildings and districts. And there are several of those in Bowling Green, some of them you may already be aware of. Always nice.
Next slide.
These are the buildings or areas that are on the National Register, and the years that they were, entered, recognized. 1974, the Wood County Courthouse and Jail. 1979, the U.S. Post Office, part of it is still there as the, facade of the city building. In 1980, Main Street Historic District, we concentrated a lot on that. 1982, Needle Hall in the city park, which was really county fairgrounds. And 1987, the Boone County Historic District. We focused really on the Main Street District and the courthouse area. So we also recognize the Boone County Historic District. One want to take it from here.
One of the reasons is this working, yes, okay, but that we were having a rush on this project is because the grant stipulations was we finished it within a year. So we really did have to work very hard to make this happen. I'm just going to mention about the Black Swan, which I was doing some history on the early history of the Youngstown, and the Black Swan, of course, was here in this whole area. Nobody was here, with this whole under studios and area and things like that. So Native Americans, they did initially they used this character, but it wasn't populated until we started draining that swan. One of the reasons that we that was a Bowling Green, we go to as the is because people didn't want to track through the swan because of the very stuff. And Bowling Green built, and we're very proud of that building. I'm not sure how we can do this line if we're working on it. So this is the listing of all 16 respective signs, and hopefully at some point you could all take a little tour and see them. I think it's really interesting. We found that it's really important to get the information correct. And we really perhaps some of you would have on the page. And we would be in trouble, and we can't remake those songs. So we spent a lot of time in research. We went to the university library, and they were very, very great. We're grateful that they could spend a lot of time do that research. I'm sure we got some things wrong. I should say that Jan was really the architect of the signs. So he's got the material in place, and maybe he would like to say a few things. But we really appreciate the hours that she spent looking at each one. I know it took a big effort from her, and we're all busy, right?
We're all. When I volunteered to be a part of this project, I have a historic home myself named Yellow Victoria in the front yard. that you may be familiar with. But, when I took this on, I thought, oh, I'll spend an afternoon writing about this time. Well, I was just opening up the research, finding out how to go about finding the information. And then, we all sat down and once we looked at all these topics or defined these topics and what buildings we wanted to feature, then we all kind of assignments. So I was responsible for 2 signs there, the ones on North Main Street. The one that is, entertainment for decades. There were 5 theaters on that one, where the Cosell Theater. It was really interesting to read about the history of the Cosell and, the theater drugstore. So if you get a chance, that sign is outside of CMB's, and you can look across the street and see all of the buildings. So that was one of the topics that we had a bit of a disagreement on. Because when we walked around and tried to figure out where we could put the signs so they wouldn't interfere with parking or light fixtures or electrical fixtures that the city needed to access, we were very limited as to where we actually could put the signs. And we didn't want anybody opening a door and hitting the sign. We knew there'd be a lot of unhappy people if that happened. So, we walked those blocks probably 3 or 4 times, yeah. I think I made 2 of the rounds, but, and the sign people were there, and the city engineers, and the electrical and utility departments, and Heather, of course, she was instrumental in this all happened. But, we could go to the next, one, and then I also had the block, the north block looking east, and talking about those buildings. And then we had to define what size the signs were gonna be, what kind of stanchion they had. Did we have 1 stanchion or 2? Do we want them angled or flat so you look down at them? And, in working with the sign company, this is what we decided. The signs are 2 by 3. Now, when we were initially looking at the signs, we were getting proofs that were this size, and we were trying to read what it was. So then we got Heather to print out actual size signs, and in that picture earlier where we were all around the table, we would spread them all out around the tables, and then each of us would sit down and read through them, and then somebody would say, well, this doesn't agree with what we said on another sign, or we have 2 different dates for that, or our sign titles are different from sign to sign. So I really worked with trying to make the signs consistent in terms of the headlines, and some had, the size of the pictures and all that kind of stuff. So, as a designer, that I thought that was my contribution, but I was not the architect. Give me way too much credit. Let's go on to the next one. This is the first draft of a map that shows all of the sign locations. And, those pretty much ended up, where we wanted to be. We moved a couple, but, talk about the buildings that no longer are there. And so we made, a point to, across the middle and the area, which would allow there was there church. I don't know if any of you remember that church. It's not where the okay. There's, yeah, and I remember that being torn down. It's when I first kind of wondering, I think it was in the early 70s, how that church built. There was like 60s. Yeah, it must have been. It was a beautiful building. And so that church is gone, and then where the new market complex is, there was another church.
No, it was hotel.
Oh, the hotel, that was the Ross Hotel, and that burned in the seventies, so I may remember that. I remember it because my mother said that she and my father spent their honeymoon night there, so. Kind of interesting to think about. But that building is gone, and then across from that, corner, which is, the armory is it, so. That is
Is that always the?
right here.
But only for maybe a year or two, and then, this was the, what was it called? Moral? There's something called college of, didn't have to be worth it, like, it's the university, but, it was, I think, very small pilot to that.
Was reminded yesterday, Pam Conlon spoke to our Rotary Club about PGSU, and she stated that was the normal school originally, and that is what they called schools where teachers were trained. So there's, the Bowling Green's always been known for its education department and training teachers. So, okay, any questions about any of these?
That corner intersection of Worcester and Prospect is interesting because none of the buildings on the signs are there anymore.
But you can read about them, right outside of CBS, so. There's a sign on the corner, and then there's also one across, so we can read about them. We did,
To show the location.
exactly, exactly. Okay, next one. So, as it says, there were between 10 and 12 edits on each sign, so we would come and we'd mark them up and we'd send them back. And then they'd come back to us and go, oh, the emphasis isn't right on something, and we would redo them and mark them all up and cross-reference.
We did finish, so we got that we finished, and Dan said, no.
And that too, but,
We had to edit all of the copies too, to make sure that the dates were.
well, and we thought we were pretty much done, and then Heather says, no, we have to have captions on all the photos, we have to have photo credits, and so then we spent several weeks tracking those down, and the historic museum helped us on that, and then had John mentioned the University Museum. So when we were looking at them, they were closer to this size, and we were doing the edits on them. Next one. Oh, did I? Yeah, okay. So here are Bowling Green's historic churches, and many of them do not exist anymore, or many of them are in their second or third iteration of buildings on the same site. For instance, the Presbyterian Church. And this you might recognize now. It's on North Grove, and it's now a home. Some of them have been converted to homes. One of them is now the Tabernacle became the Brookside Church, and now it's the Black Swamp Players Building on Court Street. So we've documented the history of the buildings, some of the signs as well.
The church across from the post office, is that it?
Yes. Yeah. That's the one that is now it's an old, it's now the, it was originally First Baptist.
H2O.
Now it's.
H2O.
Oh, yeah, the first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Catholics of church versus, so you have left maybe.
That is your sign, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I also did one of the articles that you may have seen, historic buildings of the monks. And I did one on the what is now the Black Swamp Player. It was the First Baptist Church. And then plan on doing off in the preschool.
What's next? Maybe.
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, yeah, here we are. So this is Dick Martin, John and Rose. Fine tuning, this is Nick from the Center for Archival.
And you know, up in the right corner there, Rose is telling me that we have to change something.
Yeah. But, you know, through this process, I knew all of you just by sight, but we really got to be good friends and cohorts, through the process, although it was stressful. Just about every Friday, we meet for three hours. So, next slide. Okay, so, and you want to talk about this?
What I found here is that most of it. These are pictures on the installation of the signs. And the gentleman, the older gentleman, he's got a younger assistant there. His name is John Shirtless, and he was great. He really loved Bowling Green for one thing. He came the day they were installing the signs. We met him at the Green, and he wasn't even talking to me, but he was motioning me from his property and said, "I love this tree." And we weren't sure whether it was gonna take 1 or 2 days to install the signs, but they got going and they were so efficient that they finished it all in 1 day. That is, I left them about 6:30 and they had 2 or 3 more signs to do, but I had to get going. And so,
As a company, would usually do much bigger projects. This is one of their smallest, so you could down to, what happened with the big one, you know, 15 signs for the small, job for them.
just like, oh,
So, I happened to be sitting on the deck in Guajiros. And when I walked up with my friend and my dog, and said, look, here's the base for the signs. And they had those in the sidewalks, and I said, I hope they get them up, you know, tomorrow. And by the time we left, I didn't even notice that both those signs were installed. I walked out onto the street, I go, yeah, so they really were fast.
yeah. And they drove back to Louisville that night. There was one more thing I was going to say about trees.
Those panels are supposed to last for 20 years.
Yeah. Oh, I know, because you said that it was one of their smaller jobs, just by chance I was in Louisville the summer before. And I saw the signs downtown in Louisville. They were made also by the B Sign Group is the name of the company. And, but I have to say, I've looked around at signs in Ann Arbor and Perrysburg since we've done this, and a couple of other places marked for the best. Just aesthetically, they fit very nicely. Okay. So here's a few samples of signs. This is called Serving the Citizens of Bowling Green, because it's dealing with that area where the city building, the old one was, and the new one is. And as you may know, the old city building was originally an elementary school, and it was turned into a library, and then it became a city building on Church Street. It was North Church. And of course, it was torn down to make way for the parking lot of the new city building. It was just unsalvageable, I think. Purpose. But then there was a nice solution, I find, maintaining the conduct of the old post office, which was on the historic register of historic places. And it was built in 1914. And then we have this beautiful modern building behind it, but also nicely matched. The color of the brick matches the limestone, or sandstone, excuse me, on the, post office. And here are a few more. There's one in front of it. That's in the city. Under the police. It used to be city hall, there's a city hall up there. And Heather worked on that side, got a lot of information about that building.
The city was very particular about what we, city was very particular about what we would put on that. Things they didn't want to, like, there was a murder one, you know, or I don't think they wanted us to. So they really restricted us a little bit, but I appreciate their help.
Yeah, the fire department's there, as well as you can tell, but you can still see where the doors to the fire department days were. That reminds me also of an interesting thing, we have the old post office and the old city hall. The state historic preservation office asked us not to celebrate too much with these buildings, not in their original form, but are adapted for modern purposes, because for them, that's not preserving it enough, right? So, we had originally written that, you know, we found this good solution and we're able to salvage the building, but certainly that's the way I see it. I'm kind of a practical, preservationist. They wanted us to take the language of praise out of there. And,
Yes.
okay. There we go. And,
It's a part of locations, that is successful on the city website.
yes, if you go to the city website and look for, Historic Preservation Commission, you'll get this chart which shows you where all of them are, and you can click on that chart and it takes you to images of the signs. But also there's a lot more information that you could fit on the signs themselves. So there's a QR code on every sign that takes you to this page as well. But you can just go with your looking at the city website and get lots more background information on all of the 16 places that we emphasize. And here you can see again where they're distributed. Mostly the downtown area, 3 on Worcester Green, 2 on Court Street, near the courthouse. The other one is talk about the old Women's Club building that's there, and then the Trinity Methodist, but also a house of the judge who was one of the judges involved in Bowling Green as a marriage name. You know, this was a place to come and get married quick.
Oh.
Yeah.
Seriously.
When I am here, 8 years ago, my mother who spent part of her youth in Dixieland in Michigan, and it's Bowling Green, that's where you go to get married. Yes. You do it in a day, you get the licenses. Yes, it was coming.
And then there was a hotel right across the street. Just everybody.
Thanks. This picture, it's, why it was dark. But if you look close, you can see, this is the city council chambers, which is in the front of the building, in other words, involved in the old post office structure. And this was a dedication on August, here it comes again, 15th. And what we did was we dedicated both the 16 signs that we had made and that installed. And there are 3, I think 3, signs on Worcester Green honoring the donors of all of the things that went into making Worcester Green possible. That had all happened years before, but partly due to the pandemic and other reasons, it took a long time to get those signs. And so Jason, Edwards, who were in charge of that, to get the Worcester Green place, they decided that they would go with the sign group because they were so cooperative and they did them quickly and nicely. And so the signs you can see there with the list of donors are also from that sign group, and we combined the dedication. We're going to do it on Worcester Green. Nice to do it on the spot. So it rained. So we did it inside of the city hall, which is also a good place to do. Okay.
Is there anything that might give you back off of that, something like that? And the university property, that was over the building and things like that.
There was two other, like, on this project and do signs at the university, for example, or maybe other places in town. That is a possibility. We're open to suggestions from the public, ideas, and we're probably going to return to this maybe after a couple of years.
Sure.
We'll have things taken care of. Here's some information about the Historic Preservation Commission. There are 5 members. John is the chair, I'm the secretary. The other members are Will Roderick and Heidi Rieger and Christina Tracy, who is co-owner of Juniper. She's our downtown representative. Heidi and Will are architects. And John and I are well-meaning. Amateur was the board.
I'm a saxophonist too.
Ah,
Retired professor of German, but you do that, you do a lot of history, so I kind of came into this with my interest in history in place. So we meet every fourth Tuesdays of the month at 4 o'clock. The meetings never get longer than an hour. Once, I think, in my experience, it's been longer than an hour. Meet in the city council chambers. And as I mentioned at the beginning, if you want to be a friend of the HPC and get involved in projects like this and suggest projects like this, or get involved in historic buildings of the month, we are looking for people who are interested. And Rain and Dick Martin, there are stalwart friends. Dale Arnold has a nice old house at the corner of Ridge and Prospect with the porches, so he's also a friend. And here's a historic buildings of the month. We need suggestions, we need people who want to write about them. If you've read them, some of them are more historical, with lots of details, some of them are more personal. There are lots of different ways to approach this, so if you're interested, read a few of them. They appear both on the city website and in the newspapers. And yeah, I noticed that even the police department puts it on their website. The city says by far it's the most popular thing that's on their website. And there is a thank you. Not quite done, but we're done with the basic presentation. Any questions or comments or suggestions?
The university's historic department, you get a lot of facts and the pictures and things like that.
Yeah,
Is that true?
especially for the pictures, for the Center for Archival Collections, it's a great resource.
Or is that located? What part of the building?
It's the they're very helpful. There's a lot of that the Great Lakes are there, and a lot of local newspapers and stuff.
If you want to go, you need to fill out a little form and then request material. It's not a library where you gotta go through the shelves on your own. But they're delightful people, really helpful.
Another really important resource for us is one that can use even in the comfort of your own home if you have a computer. Is the county library. On their website, there are resources, and under resources, there's county and local history. You go in and click through and get to the well, the Ohio Memories. um, database, And there are the photographs of the history of Bowling Green, history of Wood County. And we got a lot of our photos there and a lot of our information to be, options again, I'm sure that usually contain useful things like dates, right? And home memories. So I recommend you go on there and look around. You can also look at the old newspapers. And there's something also that I didn't know about before. It's called Stanford maps. And the Stanford maps are insurance maps. Every few years, for the purpose of fire prevention, right? And it's a map of especially the downtown of Bowling Green. In the 19th century, early 20th century, into the 1940s or so. And it shows what's going on in the buildings, you know, where they have a furnace or a oven or something like that, that they have to know about if they're, if the fire department is approaching. But there's all kinds of really useful information there. For example, I don't know when my house was built. County website says 1900. There are an awful lot of houses that were built in 1900 because they don't really know. But I looked on the Stanford map, on the 1908 Stanford map, the house isn't there. On the 1915 one, which is the next one, it's there. So I said, well, 1910, that's what I thought. Okay, it's going to be a bit of a challenge because of the flashing, but we're going to do this. We're going to show you some old buildings, and you have to help us decide. We've already, well, you have to help us decide where they are located now. Okay. Here we go. Now here, I have to say, none of these buildings, but you can see Howard's. But that's not Howard's as we know it, but where the library is now. That's, you know, corner of Fort Main.
Oh, I still see ones.
From now. Yeah, and see, here's what it looks like now. And then this one was called the Rose Building. I tried to look. I think it was torn down or burned down, but I couldn't find that out yet. No, it's on the other side, actually. Oh, those are old stairs. The building to its left is a hint. It still exists. It's still standing. And it's not on the east side where the corner grill is, or it looks like the corner grill because the stairs. It's on the west side. Well, take a quick look, and now we'll go to the next slide and we'll see where it is.
Oh, yeah.
And the building is still there, is
Is that where Rogers Grove?
Rogers Drive, yeah. I got here in '86, and a lot of the stuff was still there, but that was the year that things started getting big because of all things. Now, this building actually still exists, but it looks quite different now. There's a hint because it says it's the Hotel Worcester. Previously, it was Hotel Union because that street wasn't named Worcester, it was named Union originally. The idea is where that would be, not Worcester, probably. I'll show you. Recognize that building? It's not as fancy, but it's big. It's the same line.
The Chinese restaurant.
Yeah. Yes. Chinese restaurant, that old computer place that's out of business. And,
It's not cool.
it used to be, where it's not. There's one window that's been removed from the hotel times, but otherwise base shape and a little bit of decoration along the top. It's the same. And our battery is running low on top of everything else.
What's the?
Yes.
That building at one time, was that a restaurant in there was, one very close to. And it used to be a restaurant, and it was a mom and pop type
Oh,
restaurant.
it's mom and pop, I think it was
Yeah.
a restaurant, and a building, but maybe that at some point after it was a hotel, there was a restaurant.
I don't know when the hotel was, but I know in '63, there was a restaurant in that area. Because I came here. It was not any bigger than that area, but when you went in, there were like two senators, and there was kind of pushing the table in the middle, and then some down on the side. But the atmosphere was awesome. Yeah.
Okay, we have this already discussed that. One way that you can find these things out, and it's, what I've used a lot in doing my historic, building of the month article, is there are city directories from the county library. And they have things listed not only by name, but by address, right, by street. And you can go in there. They're pretty complete from the 1930s on. And see, well, what was there in 1935? And they became annual. The first few are every other year, and then there's one for 1914, I think. But they only get going in the 30s. Where the post office is. This building still exists. This one does. Remember, right? It's still there. That's good. You know, it's here. Go to the next slide. You can't see it very well here, but this was an old livery stable where Hubbard's is, and this is now open. Somebody once asked me if the Preservation Commission could do anything about that mural. I was waiting before my time. Let's see where it is. Oh, I'm sorry, no. I was making about this one. Yeah. This part of the building is still there, but the rest has been changed, yeah. So,
Right across from her.
yeah, we see that one.
Yeah.
Chambers. Okay, I think we have one or two more. This one, the building is still there, but you probably wouldn't recognize it because it looks very different. But the substance of the building is still there. Not Easy Street, no, but yes. On the other side of the street, on Easy Street. It was the First National Bank, and now it is the building, which I think is federal, the winery, right?
Oh.
Yeah, the bakery was there when I got there. Let's see how that's really been changed. As far as we know, behind that, there's still the fancy brick building. Okay. Northeast? Oh, you didn't, okay. So you know where that is, maybe too well.
What's there now?
What's there now? Yeah. The next one is the courtyard of the bank.
Oh,
This was built in 1926 and this was built in 1973. I did an article on this one too. Okay. Montgomery Ward. Uh-huh. You're there. this building doesn't exist anymore. And it was changed from that to that, and then that burned down, the old Montgomery World, and then we're damages now.
What's that, a Lions store downtown?
Yeah, but one location was at the corner of the recruiting statement. North of the recruiting station. But it might have been elsewhere as well, I don't know. Lions for that. Okay, are we done, or, no, here we go, that's the church, this is the church. We've talked about this church already today. So when we move on. That's what it's,
Wow.
but I still think it was Shirley.
Yeah, not me, so. Really think it's.
Royce building. If you think that this part isn't there anymore, but these two parts are. By the way, this is the sort of building of the month for February.
Oh, yeah.
When they built the new bank in 1926, they tore down one wing of this, which is actually where the commercial bank was. They tore down the wing of the Royce building where the commercial bank was to make way for the very fancy, impressive, classical bank. Anyone? Oh, this is Sandy's here, and this was me. It's something. That's kind of changed, guys. And so keep coming. Been a long time since this.
Where was the cocoon when it used to be downtown? It was such a hush hush secret, which I could understand. I know where it is now, but you know, would you happen to know where it was downtown?
No, that's everyone.
Okay, was it the cocoon shelter? Well. And, you know, it's a lot more of a lockdown situation, but it used to be downtown, and I thought it was along, somewhere along where the bank area was above. Because it has to be so close to a police station, so much, you know, because they run into lots of crowds.
It might have been up there where the office is. I had an office there for a while. This, Janet mentioned that there were lots of theaters in Lower Main, especially on North Main, but also on South Main. There was an opera house. And that means sometimes they would have operas, but mostly it was just whatever Joe was coming to, vaudeville. And this one, that also became a movie theater later, the Del Mar Theater, and that burned down. But if you, here's the picture of it after it burned down. And it left the space here. Kaufman, that building was already there and stayed there. That's the Hankey building. And then the space is where the
Lab.
yeah. It was a big building.
500.
Heard that there were a lot of pool halls in downtown Bowling.
Yes, there were lots of pool halls. You can see that those and maps, mostly up in the, east side. And also, you can see on the Sanborn map, so it's right now. So. You can go on to the. About the coast. From a department store, you know what that is now? When I got here, it was still a department store, but not from those, by any means. was the house, and the one I here was the house. Yeah. So. Here we go. A picture of what's the house, that looks like early sixties maybe, and what it is today. We just keep going. It's repeated. So it's a former prospect. Took this picture personally of the Russell burning down, and that's what's been on. I think we're at the end. This stuff doesn't matter so much. There's the plans for Central Bowling Green. The first one. And.
I would just encourage you to, don't be intimidated by the signs. There's a lot of information on them. But as you're downtown, just stop at one sign and read one section of it. Because there's so much information, you can't retain it all. And a lot of people think, oh, I'm just gonna take an afternoon and go see all of them. Well, you can't do that, you know, just go see one. And we love to drive through town and see people standing and reading them. It just warms my heart. And the one picture that you saw that Heather had the people with the smiley faces, she just wanted to call that to everybody's attention because people from out of town, the parents, university students, they really enjoy those signs too. So we're very pleased.
This is where the post office is now. The new federal building. And I think we need to express our thanks to Danielle. For
So sorry. I'm having like seizures from the flashlight. And then my brain is going, oh, I am so annoyed that it's doing that. So I apologize.